All right, we're now recording. So this is the first open lab for the second test for healthcare finance. I'm going to go over really fast what to expect from the test, just kind of a general rundown. And then the two of you that are here can go ahead and ask any questions you have. We can review things and go over anything you guys might want to go over before you take the test. So the test is open until Saturday. There is a time limit on the test. It's 1 hour and 50 minutes, just like the last one. Once again, nothing is allowed on this test. You can have an open Excel spreadsheet, a blank one, ready to go. You can use a calculator, but no notes, no internet, no textbook, none of those kinds of things, okay? There are 40 questions total, which is just a little bit less than the last test. You'll start out with 18 multiple choice or true-false questions. There's one matching question, which will match based on the terms such as mission statement and the values state summaries and things like that. You can find those on page, I wrote it down here, pages 254 to 256, and also on page 257. So those are the terms that you'll need to match. Next, there'll be 12 fill in the blank or short answer questions. And then finally, there are 9 problems at the very end. And a lot of you guys probably learned, speaking to anyone that might be watching this video later, the problems at the end can take a lot of time and they're worth a lot of points. So if you are kind of a slower test taker, it might be wise to start there and then come back around to do the short answer and multiple choice type questions afterwards. So for the problems, I like to review real quick what kinds of problems you should expect and what to know how to do. The first one is you need to know how to do a profit and loss statement, which I believe is in chapter 5. You can find it on page 176. It explains the profit and loss statement, its structure, what it shows, how to fill it out. Once again, it's page 176. Next, you'll need to be able to calculate a couple of things from the profit and loss statement, like the contribution margin, the total contribution margin, or the per unit contribution margin, the volume break even, those kinds of things. The volume break even, if you guys remember, it's a simple equation, and I can actually show that here. Let me share my screen with you real quick, and I'll go over that really fast. All right. So volume break even is that equation. It's total revenues minus total variable costs minus fixed costs equals profit. So if we use algebra, we can solve for that. Now we learned that we're going to set the profit to 0 when we're determining volume break even, and that's because we're not trying to make any profit right now. We just want to determine what volume do we need to provide in order to break even, to become self-sufficient as a business. Okay, we're not going to make any money, we're not going to lose any money. So we'll set that profit to 0. We know that total revenues minus total variable costs is our contribution margin. So we can actually change this equation to be contribution margin. You got the total contribution margin here. Contribution margin minus fixed costs equals profit, which is going to be at $0, okay? So contribution margin, we know, is just the total volume times the variable cost what am I doing? Times the per unit contribution margin, excuse me, which we should be able to calculate minus fixed costs. So the first thing we're going to do is simple algebra. We're going to add our fixed costs to both sides. So this will then become volume times the contribution margin equals our fixed costs. And then we'll divide both sides by the contribution margin, and then we'll have volume equals X, whatever it might be. So fixed costs divided by contribution margin. So there is an easier way to calculate this with Excel if you would like to. You can plug everything in and let it do it for you. Let's see, I guess I already had that all written out here. So total revenue is price times volume. So here's that equation again. Coming up here, let's say that the price per service is $52. This will just be an example. Variable cost per service, let's see, is $15, and our fixed costs, let's say, are $50,000. Estimated number of services, let's say that we're expecting to give, let's say, 3,500 services. So our total revenues then, we'll put in our price per service times the estimated number of services. Our variable costs is going to be equal to variable cost per service times, again, the estimated number of services. That shouldn't be a dollar amount. Let me change that real quick. Our total contribution margin is simply our total revenues minus our total variable costs, $129,500. Fixed cost is going to be the same as what we see here, just a straight number given to us. And then profit and loss is going to be equal to the contribution margin minus the fixed costs. So that's how you construct a profit and loss statement right there. That's what it should look like. That's how the numbers are entered in. Now, in order to use Excel to find your break-even volume, what you're going to do is come to this box here. I'm going to minimize that. And you're going to come to your data tab. Let's see if I can get rid of this box. So data tab. And then right here you see this what if analysis. And you'll go to goal seek. So what you'll do is you'll set this cell to value 0 because we want $0. That's what we're going to set our profit to. By changing, and then this is where you click on your estimated volume. You're going to change the volume to set that cell to 0. You hit OK, and it will goal seek for you. And we need 1,351.35 services to have a 0. Now, if you round up or down, probably isn't as important, but you can't really treat 0.35 of a person, so I'd probably round up for volume analysis, break even. But that right there is how you solve for the break-even volume using Excel. And here's a profit and loss statement we've just gone over as well. I should have emphasized that a little bit more at the beginning. Do you guys have any questions about that? About how I found those numbers and anything like that?
So you can use that goal seek to also like find out like if you wanted a certain profit?
Yeah, if you wanted a certain profit, the only thing, let me share screen again. So coming back to this Excel sheet here, the only thing that I would do differently is when I hit on that what if analysis and goal seek, I will just set the cell to whatever value I'm trying to get. So let's say that I want to have a let's say I want to have a $200,000 profit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll change that same cell. Okay. And now I've got $200,000 profit here. And I need to have 6,757 services.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions real quick? And again, if you are having trouble using Excel, you can just use the equation. It's algebra. I know it can be a little bit confusing. Just kind of review this. It goes over it in the book as well in chapter 5. And it's not too complicated once you understand what you're doing with the different variables there. Okay. So after those two things, profit and loss statement, volume break even, contribution margin, those kinds of things, we've talked a lot about cost allocation in the last couple of chapters. So you'll need to understand how to determine what a cost pool is, find an allocation rate. We can go over those if you guys would like. I'm going to go ahead and continue quick through the rest of the problems, and then we can go over any of the ones that you want to go over. So again, the cost pool and allocation rate, the dollar allocation amount to each profit center or each patient services department. So it might give you like the total overhead costs that need to be distributed or allocated. And then it will give you a couple of variables that you might be able to use as your cost driver to allocate those. And it will ask you to calculate based on those how much each department owes in overhead costs, okay? And then break-even analysis, going back to that, you can actually solve for price as well, what price is necessary, using that same equation, same what-if formula. There's a question about determining a per member per month rate in capitation. And that one is not as scary as it seems. I know that we reviewed using fee-for-service method or the cost-based method where we determine like the estimated full-time equivalents for physicians and utilization and all those things. We're not going to do anything as complicated as that for the test. It will simply tell you about the size of the population, the estimated number of patient service days that will be used, and then the price per 1 day of patient services. And you'll just need to calculate then what is the per member per month rate. And again, we can go over that if you guys would like to when I get through these last couple of problems here. Number 7 here, you'll need to understand how to use RVUs, relative value units. This was in the chapter 7 that we just went over last week. And so if you remember that, it kind of helps you understand how many resources are being used by each service, and you use that to determine the price for your product. And so it'll give you the number of RVUs per a couple of different activities. It will tell you the total costs involved with them. And from that, you will need to then determine the price for each of those services. And again, that's pretty straightforward math, simple algebra, and we can go over that as well if you guys would like. And the last thing is just variance. We talked about profit variance and budgeting and things like that in the last chapter, chapter 8. So you'll need to know how to calculate and interpret profit variance, revenue variance, and cost variance. And pages 273 to 276 in your textbook go over those for you. By interpret, it simply means you need to be able to tell me we varied positively or negatively on each of these things based on what you calculate.
I'm sorry, you said we need to know revenue, cost, and what other variance?
Profit variance.
Profit. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so we don't need to know volume or management variances?
Those are good to know, but you won't be asked about them on the test.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what to expect. Do you guys have any questions about anything else on the test? Anything you would like to go over? Nothing?
Could we do a per member per month one?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me get my screen share going. 1 second here. Okay, there we go. All right. So this kind of a problem, this is what it will tell you. It'll say, you are going to use a certain number of patient service days. Let's say that you're going to use 160. Let's do 175. You're going to utilize 175 patient service days for let's say you're going to use that for every 2,500 patients, we'll use 175 patient days. And then it will tell you that the cost per patient day is going to be, let's say it's going to be $80. So based on that, you will determine a per member per month rate. And all you're going to do is go, okay, I've got 175 patient service days, and the cost per day is going to be $80. So my total cost is going to be that $14,000 there. Then you're going to take that number and you're going to divide it by the number of patients in the population. And that's going to be 560. Let me change some of these numbers so that we get a little bit better example here. I'm going to change this number here to 700. That's a little bit better. Let's see. I'm going to change this number to $150. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to make these numbers here like this, just so that the numbers come out a little bit better for us. So number of patient service days per year, I'm going to put that in there just so we have that cleared up. It will give you that number, let's say 1,000 total for every 2,500 patients, and the cost per patient day is $150. So once again, to get the total cost, we'll just take the number of patient service days in a year times by the cost per day, and that gives us the per year amount per member. A lot of people stop right there and think that they've solved the problem, but you're trying to find the per month rate. So all you're going to do is take that same number and divide it by 12, because there's 12 months in the year. Your per member per month rate is $5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions about that or how I solved for that there?
Mm-mm.
No.
All right. Anything else you guys would like to go over?
Are there going to be, what was that? The cost, volume, profit graphs that we need to like analyze?
There won't be any graphs for you to analyze. Just
Okay.
once again, you'll need to look over like the variances and the costs and profits and things like that, but there isn't any CVP analysis or anything like that. It might ask you a couple questions about it and why it's useful in the multiple choice
Mm-hmm.
questions, but there's not going to be a problem on that.
Okay. In chapter 8, the financial plan, do we need to know the order of all of the, like the sections in it?
I don't think that you need to know the order, but once again, you'll need to go over those terms on pages 254 to 256, like the vision, the mission statement, the values of the company, and then kind of just understand a little bit what they contain, like the financial plan, operating plan. You'll need to know what the statistics budget is, that it's the one that has all of the information that the other budgets use. But other than that, you don't need to really put them in specific order or be able to outline each individual one.
Okay.
Could we do a break-even problem solving for price?
Yeah, you can do that. All right. So once again, we'll come back here then, and it might give us a total number of patients that we're going to see. Let's say it's going to be 2,000 patients is what we're estimating. Once again, the price per service will be given, $53, or actually that's going to be the one that's blank. That's what we're solving for, okay? And then we've got the variable costs per service, the fixed costs, and then we can plug it into that profit and loss statement here, the total revenues. So what we're going to do now is when we use that same what if analysis, we're going to do goal seek, and this is our profit. So it's going to say I want you to earn $200,000 profit. Okay, so we'll set this cell again to $200,000. Oh wait, price. What am I doing? We want to set this one to 0, but instead of changing our volume cell, we're going to change our price per service cell right here. Okay, and then that will tell us if we charge $40 per service and we give 2,000 services, we will break even.
Okay.
Okay. So once again, I'll just go over that one more time real quick. So goal seek.
Sorry, one second. If we're doing it, I've been doing it with the equation. So if we're doing it with the equation, basically you have to use the volume and times that by your P instead of doing it. So you would use 2,000 times P minus the variable cost times,
Yeah.
right? Because you have the volume.
Right. So if we're trying to do it for that, then yes, the price is then the variable that is unknown. So we'll have the volume will be a known variable at this point. And so when you get down to this part here, when you get down here to price minus variable cost times volume equals profit minus fixed costs, you'll then get it to where it becomes price equals fixed costs and minus variable costs. Let me back myself up here. So you're going to solve the equation the same way, but instead of ending up with your volume as the variable that you're solving for, you'll just change it to where it becomes price.
Right. Okay. So you have.
So you'll divide both sides by volume, fixed cost divided by volume. You'll end up with price equals fixed costs. Let me put this one in parentheses, actually. Fixed costs divided by your volume. And then you're going to minus variable costs.
Okay.
There you go. Good question. You had me stumped for a sec. I was confusing myself.
I redid that problem last night, and it took me a minute to figure it out. So I just wanted to go over it one more time, make sure I did it right.
That's good. I wasn't prepared for that one. Okay.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. That's good. Good question. Any other questions you guys have? We've got some time here. I guess I can tell you maybe a couple other things that you might want to be prepared for. It's just understand the differences between the different allocation methods. So there's direct method, the reciprocal method, and the step-down method. Can one of you guys tell me what the direct method is?
When all the support departments allocate to each service department, and no allocation goes to the support.
Right. No allocation is given to the other support departments. They don't recognize those costs. Okay. What about the reciprocal method?
That's where each department recognizes the overhead, right?
Right. That's when they recognize all overhead costs. So basically they say, okay, the HR department is also giving services to the billing department. So we're going to allocate some of the costs from the HR department over to the billing department that they will then have those costs assigned to them. and so forth. They recognize all of those costs. The step-down method then is kind of a mix between the two. It recognizes some of those inter-support department costs, but not all of them. Okay, and then what about, can you guys tell me what is the static budget, the flexible budget, and the actual results, and how do those relate?
So the static budget is like the plan budget.
Right. Static budget is the planned budget, which is set at the beginning of the budgeting period, and it's not going to be changed. What about actual results? Sounds pretty straightforward. It's what actually is achieved within that period. What is the flexible budget?
The flexible budget is you use the actual number of visits, but you use like the rates you used for your static budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, okay. Sorry, guys. When you come back. Okay, thank you. Okay. Right. So the flexible budget is based off of the static budget, but using the actual volume that was achieved. All of the other assumptions remain the same. So if you create yourself a static budget and you can kind of calculate the different things you're expecting based on your volume, you simply change that volume and all the other things remain the same. And it just kind of helps them to respond to the changes in the market that they're seeing.
Are we going to have to do any equations where we have to create a flexible budget out of a static and actual?
No, you will not. I actually looked over the test and there wasn't. I kind of thought that there was going to be one. I remember it was in the case study, I believe.
Yeah.
That we just recently did, but I don't think it's in this test, so you can take a sigh of relief right there. Here's something actually that I just thought of that a lot of students kind of struggle with, it seems like, or they don't fully understand. So we learned about the cost structure of a business, and this is going back to fixed costs and variable costs. If you remember, fixed costs are not related to the volume whatsoever. They're going to be the same no matter if we treat 10 patients or 250 patients. The fixed costs won't change. But the variable costs are directly related to volume. Every single service that we offer is going to cost us that additional amount, whatever that variable cost amount is. So the question, or the concept, I guess, that people don't get is which kind of cost structure is best for a capitated company and which type is best for a fee-for-service company.
I remember this because I got it wrong on the homework.
Yeah, okay. This is probably good to go over it.
Like fixed cost, right? Fixed cost structure is better for capitated and variable is better for fee-for-service.
Yes, that is correct. But you need to be able to explain to me why. Why?
Yeah, I don't know why.
So in capitated market, in a capitated market, you're not getting paid for every service that you offer. You're getting a fixed amount, let's say $40 per month, for each person that is in the covered population. So the insurance company has 300 people that they cover. They're going to give you $40 for each one of them to provide the services that they need. So your revenue is capped. You're not going to make any more money by providing any additional services.
Right. So if you reduce your variable costs, it won't increase your revenue.
Right. If you reduce the variable costs, it will increase the revenue because each visit is going to cost you a little bit more and shrink that amount that you get to keep left over. So if you can change all of your costs to fixed costs, then the utilization or the amount of services that people come for isn't going to affect your take home, your profit. So regardless of whether you provide service to 20 patients or to 80 patients in a month, your revenue that doesn't move, and then your fixed costs don't move. As long as you can ensure that your fixed costs are less than that per month revenue you're bringing in, you have a guaranteed profit. Fee for service is opposite. You do make money by providing additional services. Every service that we pay or that we provide, we get paid for. So the volume is key there. So if we can switch our costs then to all variable costs, as long as we don't have too many variable costs, each service that we provide will have a little bit of cost with it, but it will also have its own revenues. So it will make a profit based on every single visit. If we had fixed costs and then only end up serving a few patients, our fixed costs could very easily exceed the amount that we're bringing in for treating those patients, and we would lose money. But by eliminating the fixed costs and having all variable costs, if we serve 5 patients, we'll still make a profit. If we serve 300 patients, we'll make a lot more profit because we're having that profit margin with each individual patient, each additional patient that is coming in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, any other questions? That's everything I can really think of. I mean, it would be good to review your assignments that you've done just to freshen your memory on some of these things. But I've gone over the problems you should expect and the test time limit, how many questions, those kinds of things. I'll get this video uploaded today so you guys can review it again if you would like. But anything else that you can think of? Well, I'll be here for another 20 minutes now. So we have time if you would like to go over something else.
I'm just curious. So there's like traditional costing and activity-based costing methods.
Right.
Like healthcare organizations, do they do like a combination of both of those?
Some might do a combination. We just learned about like conventional budgeting and zero-based budgeting in chapter 8, I believe it was. And those are kind of similar, I guess. So conventional or traditional budgeting or allocation, it just kind of takes the costs and then distributes them to the departments at the top. So they just kind of look at how much departments are open and things that they did, and they just give out the costs. Activity-based costing, it is going to look at each of the individual services that produce the costs. So instead of saying like, oh, this clinic is providing this many services, let's give them like this big chunk of the costs, we'll say, well, how many nurses do we need to staff to provide that service? How many rooms do we have to use? How many little things that you stick on the thing to check the ear and nose that we have to go through, and what do those cost? So it looks at on a very low level, basic level of what each individual little cost is that the service is producing, and then it will assign the costs that way. That's why it's called a bottom-up approach, because it looks at each of those individual things and scrutinizes where those costs are coming from. It's theoretically better because it's more fair and it is accurate, but it is expensive to implement because you got to pay people to determine those things and to calculate and to solve and to allocate those costs. It takes more managerial resources.
Right. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else you guys have for me?
Well, if you're just going to be here for another 20 minutes, can you just go over a cost allocation?
A cost allocation?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Let me pull up my Excel sheet again. Share screen here.
Like the allocation rate?
Yeah. So let's see. It will tell you that you have overhead costs. Gonna make this dollars here. Let's say that you've got $500,000 of overhead costs that you need to distribute to your profit centers, to your patient services departments. So let's say that we've got a radiology department, we've got pediatrics, and we've got, let's say, pharmaceuticals. And we're going to come in here and it might give you a couple of different things. So let's say that one of them is house cleaning hours. And then another one might be like bills produced. And so it'll tell you like which department it might be. House cleaning hours, let's say that these guys use 400 hours, and I don't want these $3 anymore. These guys use 400 hours, and these guys use, let's say, 200 hours, and these guys use only 100 hours. So you'll need to calculate like, okay, your total housekeeping hours is going to be that sum of these numbers here. So if you decide to use this as your allocation, as your cost driver, so here's my cost pool. The total hours is going to be my cost driver. So how do I determine the allocation rate then? You guys know? So I've got my cost pool. The allocation rate equals the cost pool
The cost driver.
divided by the total cost driver volume. So in order to find the allocation rate, that's what I'll put right here. We're going to take the cost pool and simply divide it by the total number of hours. I don't know what that is. Divided by, thank you. So that is going to be our cost for each of these things. So then you'll come here, and to determine what each one is going to get, you'll then take their total number of that cost driver and times it by your allocation rate. Because remember, this is $714.29 for each hour of house cleaning. That's kind of expensive. I used some bad numbers again, but you get the idea.
Maybe for the year?
Yeah. So then you can just pull these down here. That shouldn't be 0. Oh, let's see. If you want to do it this way in Excel, you got to fix that allocation rate number, and then you can just drag it down. And if you notice, you should be able to have right here 500,000. Your total allocation amount, when you add those up, it should be equal to what you started with for your overhead costs.
So for the actual problem, we will have to decide which cost driver is best for the situation.
So I think it'll
tell us.
I think it'll tell you what the different cost drivers are. I think it might give you 2. And then I think it will ask you actually to solve both of them, what the allocation would be if you used that one. And then I think it will ask you to determine which you think is better.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess along with that, then there were 2 things that were in the book about what makes a good cost driver. You guys remember what those were?
That it's fair and that it controls costs.
Perfect. It's fair and it controls costs. That's exactly right. So you want it to be fair. You want to make it so that it's something that each of the departments is using evenly, or that is not going to be like unfair to one department. So like I wrote over here earlier the number of bills generated. So let's say that you have a cardiology department, and then you've got like your pediatrics department. Your pediatric doctors are probably going to see like way more patients in a day. Parents are going to be bringing in their sick kids. They want to get them taken care of. They're going to see a lot of patients and produce a lot of bills. But then one heart surgery might take hours. It might take up half of the day, and that only produces 1 bill, or maybe a handful of bills, because you need one for the surgeon, and you need one for the anesthesiologist, and then you need a couple for like the equipment, maybe the operating room. It depends on how the hospital divides with their bills. But basically, you'll get like very few bills for the one service based on the number of bills for the other, for pediatrics. So that one could be good because it determines how much work are you producing for the billing department. And it's fair because it reflects how much work is being caused by your department. And it reduces costs because it encourages them to find a way to maybe bundle their bills and create less billings for the billing department. Now, in some cases, revenue, I know there was a question on the homework, it said patient services revenue was an option. And again, that one could be good in some situations, but in this same example, the heart surgery is going to bring in way more revenues than checking a child for a cold. But it might not produce, but again, the number of bills is what determines how much work you're giving to the department, to the billing department. And so it's not exactly fair. And it encourages them actually to reduce their revenues that they're bringing in. So that's something you don't want. But yeah, just remember that it needs to be fair and it needs to help control costs or cut costs. It needs to encourage the patient services department to change something that they're doing and reduce the costs for their department.
Okay.
All right, anything else you guys would like to go over? We've got 10 more minutes. You guys want to do the RVUs, relative value units?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. So let's do that then. So let's say that we've got test A. I'm just going to label them this way. Test B and test C. Let's do test C as well. And then the number of RVUs for each one. Let's say that test A takes 3 RVUs, test B takes 7 RVUs, test C takes 9, and test D takes 15 RVUs per each test, for each service that you're going to do. And then it will give you maybe the volume of each service. So let's say that in a year you're going to produce, or you're going to do in 1 month, you're going to provide 42 of these, and 20 of these, and 32 of these, and then only 10 of those. So you can then come over here and determine your total number of RVUs, which is going to be the volume of the test times the number of RVUs that you use. You can pull that down here and then total it up. So 704 total RVUs. It will also then give you the costs associated with it. So let's say that your cost is going to be, someone give me a number, just throw a number out there.
5 million.
5 million, that's big. All right, this is going to be expensive. Okay. So to find the per RVU price, again, it's just pretty simple math. You're just going to take that total cost and divide it by your total RVUs. So each RVU is $7,102. So then to find the cost for each of these tests, you'll just take that per RVU price and times it by the number of RVUs for that service. So test A costs $21,000. And each of those you can pull down and then we'll see. Test B costs $49,000. Test C costs $63,000 and so forth. Once again, that should be equal to our total that we started with. That doesn't add up. Oh, that's just our cost. Okay. So that was for our total in the month. So that's the cost per service. If we want to see the cost per service for that whole year, we'll times it by the volume of the services provided. And then that total should give us that 5 million back. Now, if you want to earn a profit, you can say, oh, I want to earn like $2 million of profit. So if you want the total amount to be 2 million, or 2 million profit, you'll change this to 7 million, because you know that your costs are 5 million and you want a profit for 2 million. Then this is what you should charge to earn that $2 million profit.
Per test.
Per test, yeah. So that changes your RVU, or your per RVU price. Let me put that in there, per RVU price. Because you put in that stipulation to earn a profit. Does that make sense? Did I confuse you guys a little bit?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm good.
Maybe I should split up this cost and profit thing a little bit. Let's do that. Okay. Your costs are the same, and then your profit is going to be here. So when you calculate your per RVU price, you're going to want to add those two together. So it's your total costs plus your profit divided by the total RVUs. And that shows us the same numbers we had before. And then you can change this. I only want to make 1.5 million. That's what I should charge for each of those tests. Or maybe my costs are only actually 3 million, but I still want that 1.5 million profit. Okay, this is what I should charge them for each test. Okay?
Okay.
We've just got a couple more minutes. Do you guys have any more questions before we go?
Mhm.
That I can think of.
All right, well, just one more time then. 40 questions total, 1 hour, 50-minute time limit. The problems are at the end. There's 9 of them. If you think that it will take you a while, it'd be a good idea maybe to start there and then come back around. And then there'll be 18 multiple choice true false, 1 matching question, and then 12 fill in the blank or short answer questions. That's it. You guys should do great.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. You guys can view
Bye.
this again, and we'll do the other open lab tomorrow. So if you think of any more questions, you can come to that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.